All right. Hello, everybody. So, my name is Jackie Svedich, and I'm going to be talking to you here today about how I'm planning on implementing merge cubes into my classroom. So, merge cubes are a really cool technology piece that you can use augmented reality in addition to virtual reality. My focus is going to be on augmented reality, but I want to be clear that you can also purchase goggles and continue to use the same tool and take it a step further into virtual reality. So just to make sure we're all on the same page as far as augmented reality goes, we see this a lot. If you think back to our challenge that we did in our class, you can see the picture over here on the right side. That was actually my project. I looked at an app called Spacecraft 3D, which brought to life examples of spacecraft such as like the Hubble telescope. In the middle, you can see you can color a picture. You can bring that to life using your tablet. And then finally, even just on Snapchat, augmented reality all the time. So using those filters, I see my students constantly using these as ways to communicate with their friends and just to kind of have fun. So augmented reality in itself is a very engaging tool. And so I wanted to look into ways in which I could use that within my classroom. So a merge cube, you can see a picture on the right, is a tool that allows you to hold a visual, a 3D model. And so not only can you hold it in your hand, but you can move it around. So I can rotate it and I can bring it closer. I can zoom in. This is something that for me in specifics, like teaching science, we talk about things that are microscopic. And if I can, zoom that in and allow them to hold it in their hand, that's going to be a way more effective and engaging tool for them to understand the topics that I'm covering. And then on the other side, when I'm teaching, topics that are super broad, it's nice to be able to shrink that down and allow them to continue to hold that in their hand to conceptualize and understand what it is that we are discussing. So if you just Googled Merge Cube on their website will pop up and it will kind of go through and give you an idea of the different components that they have. But overall, they have a lot of AR gaming tools. They have STEM learning. So it's not just for fun. It's not just gaming. It's also learning. Creating virtual objects, which is going to be the bulk of my project here today. And you can use any type of device. It can be Apple products, it can be Android, or it can be Windows. So in order to use a merge cube, the first thing that you need to do is you got to purchase one. And so that's kind of the downside to this, is that it does cost money. Typically they're sold for about $19 per cube. But I did see that Walmart also sells them and they're at a little bit more of a discounted price. I was very interested in using merge cubes because my school librarian informed me that we already had at our disposal 30 individual merge cubes. She went to a conference and they had a sale going on, so she was able to purchase all 30 and they only cost $1 each. So it's kind of a steal there, and I'm really grateful that we have this piece of technology. You also need a device, so each of your students that are using it need to have access to a computer. They can use a cell phone or they can use a tablet. And then lastly, you'll need the application in order to show the feature as well. So the ones that I'm going to be focusing on is actually this guy here, the object viewer. That's going to be pretty critical for later on when I go over my project. But here are some examples of some other apps that you could also use as well. And you can find specifics to the content that you're trying to teach if you just search for it. So after you purchase your merge cube, there are free options. So if you are interested in using this app, all you need to do is buy that cube and you can find plenty of things you can use for free. So I would just open up my app store and I just typed in Merge Cube apps and a ton of things popped up. So Things was one, Galactic Explorer, Mr. Body, which could be used in a science class. The 3D Museum viewer could be used in like an art or like a history class. And you're also able to design your own AR via using like a 3D printing program, which is what I'll be talking about later on today. But there also are some purchasing options as well. So if your school is flexible and maybe allowing you to write a grant for it, you can purchase virtual reality goggles. You can use their pre-made assignments that can be designed for classes such as geology, anatomy, chemistry, and mathematics. And then there were also some other specific apps that you could buy for like, $2-ish. One of them was an anatomy AR, which allowed you to look at like the brain, looking at different organs within your body. And it allowed you to kind of pull apart different part components and labeling different terms, and it gave you definitions and whatnot. And there was a cellular one that I thought looked cool for my purposes specifically. So I was able to look at a cell and it told me all of the different organelles and its functions. And it was kind of like an interactive game, which was pretty cool. But moving away from my content area, this 57 Degree North app looked really interesting. It was an interactive narrative story, and it looked like you kind of got brought into literature, which I think would be pretty cool for any English teachers that are out there. So what I'd like to do really fast is show you how this works. I'm going to use the merge cube that I have in addition to some of the apps that I have here on my cell phone. Okay, so let's take a moment and actually see this merge cube in life. So first thing, the merge cube is not something that's going to break. And I feel like with technology, as teachers, sometimes we might worry that we spend this money on these new tools and they break. Well, this is made out of foam. Like, it's not, if a kid drops it, I'm not concerned that this is going to break and that all that money that I just spent is, down the toilet. So these guys are really, really durable. Now, if we take a look at some of those apps that I talked to you guys about, I want to start off by showing you this first app, which is called the Explorer. So I teach earth science, and in my earth science unit, I have a whole section over astronomy. And astronomy is really, really tricky for my students. It's very difficult for them to conceptualize the sizes of the planets and where they're located, and how is it that asteroids and comets are moving around. And so this app allows me to take our solar system and put it in the palm of my hand, and I can move it around and I can ask them questions, and the visuals are just really, really beneficial. And so, like I said earlier, Merge Cube isn't specific to just augmented reality. I just don't have those VR goggles, so I'm going to focus on just using the augmented one. And so it's going to ask me to show the Merge Cube. And once I place it in the view, all of a sudden now I have the solar system just like in my hand, and I can rotate, right? So my kids can spin it at their own pace. And, if they want to zoom in and let's say they want to look at Jupiter, there it is. They've got a nice, awesome view. I can say, hey guys, where is, the asteroid belt? And they can see, oh, there's a bunch of asteroids that are located right there. But if I even hold it steady, take a look at how fast some of these planets are orbiting the sun compared to others. This is just an awesome visual for them to conceptualize and understand, what these planets look like. And not just that, but the size of them. So I'm going to make a little stand really quick because I even can take this a step further. So let's say I'm having my kids look and I'm like, you know what? I want you guys to learn a little bit more about, let's say, Saturn. So I have them zoom in and I click on it. Let me adjust. Okay, so here's Saturn. I can hit this info button and it's going to tell me some information about it. Now it's basic general, but this might be a great introductory activity. So it says Saturn is the second largest planet in our solar system. It's a gas giant with 7 groups of rings, and it has at least 53 moons in its orbit with a possible total of 62 moons. So all of the planets give me this information. So another big thing, a lot of kids forget about Uranus. They'd forget that Uranus also has rings, very similar to how Saturn does. But in this visual, I can see that, right? And it tells me right there, Uranus is a gas giant with 13 rings and 23 or 27 moons. And it gets its blue color from the methane gas in the atmosphere. And it takes 84 Earth years for Uranus to make one trip around the sun. And so I just think that this is such an engaging tool that my kids can use to show me their understanding of our solar system. And the last thing that I kind of want to show you guys is that there's also an option to record. So if I wanted my kids to prove to me that they understand certain concepts, there's this record button. Can you see that in the top corner right there? If I hit that button, the kids can record themselves talking about it. I can ask them, hey, I want you to tell me all the planets, tell me where, the asteroid belt is located, talk to me about the rotations. They can do all of those things, and they could upload it to let's say Google Classroom and whatnot. There's just a lot of really cool possibilities with an app that is like this. And it's definitely something that I plan on using in the next couple of years, especially now knowing that I'm fortunate enough to have, 30 of these merge cubes. So before I move forward, I just want to remind you guys that app that I was using, the Explorer, was a free app. So aside from having to purchase that merge cube, what I just did, which I think would be a great tool for my classroom, I wouldn't have to pay any extra for it. The kids would just have to make sure they have it downloaded on their phone, or if you have like classroom iPads, you can download them on there and they'd be able to use it just fine. So I wanted to take these merge cubes a step further. Teaching in the high school, I feel like it's harder to get their excitement and engage them in what it is that I'm trying to talk about when it comes to technology, because they do so much technology outside of class. And so I wanted to think of how I could challenge my students to be using, AR or VR to enhance their own learning. And like I said, I'm going to focus more on augmented reality, and I wanted to see how could this engage them in the content that I'm talking about, and what units do my students really struggle with. So trying to balance and figure out what problems that can be solved by using this technology, I decided that the best thing that I could do for my kids would be to ask them to design their own augmented reality. They see it all the time, but I want them to kind of understand, like, how are they created? How are they made? And so the program that I would like to use with my kids is called TinkerCad. It is free, and it's really user friendly, and it's also compatible with Google Classroom. And I also like the component, or the fact that I can create a teacher role and create classes for each of my students where I can kind of see their designs and see their progress. And so what I would have them do is make a 3D design. They would convert it into a file, and then we were going to upload it into what we call Miniverse Object Viewer, which is also a free app. And they'll get a code, and then they would be able to view it on their phone. So let me show you what TinkerCad looks like and how that works. So this is TinkerCad, and it is super user-friendly. And I chose this program for two reasons. The first reason is I know that there are other classes in our building that are using TinkerCad. And so just to have that uniformity, I feel like we're really setting up our kids for success and creating something super awesome as far as 3D modeling goes. The second reason I decided to choose this program is because we also have a 3D printer. So as I'm going through and asking kids to design things, if they want to take it home with them, they can just send it right to our printer and they can print it off and take it home. And I thought that would be pretty cool too. So signing in, very easy. It's over at the top right corner. If you've never created one before or account, you just hit join now. So I have an account, so I'm going to hit sign in, and right away it prompts me and it says students join your class. So remember that. I'm going to show you that here in a second. I'm signing in with Google because I created an account through my school email. So here's my account. We're going to see my dashboard. So the way that I'm set up is as a teacher. And so the first thing that pops up is it says classes. And I've already put in my 2 bio classes. And so what I can do to get those kids, like when they first sign in and it says students join your class, if I click on this, it gives me a class code, just like how I would have kids sign up for Google Classroom. And this is actually compatible with Google Classroom. Like I can send things through it and like the link will already be there, which is awesome. And so just like with Google Classroom, you push out material, assignments, through that program, I can do that here, which is awesome because I always worry sometimes with technology. If I can't see what they're doing, how do I know if they're on track? How can I help them? I can see it on my end as well, which is super cool. When the kids first sign in and create their own account, it's going to have them go through a ton of tutorials. So I think the first time they sign in, I think gives them 5. And these are just like transferring objects or grouping objects together or making them bigger or changing the color, alignment. It just has them practice just using that program in general. And I can send them more. So through that class, like this classes button that I talked about earlier, I can send them more starters in practice. But then I can give them little mini lessons. Like I might say, I want you guys to create a chess pawn. Go. I can send this to them. They can practice with it. There are also project options for other teachers who are maybe interested in using 3D. It'll tell them, okay, we want you to design a house, like super, super cool. Or over here, they've got a challenge for making a wind farm blade. Lots of really, really cool things that are already programmed into this interface, and you just send it out. You don't even have to do anything, which is awesome. The other thing that they have in here is a gallery. So they show kids what they're already creating, which is pretty cool. And they can search for things, lots of awesome stuff. So let's say I wanted to start my own project. Super easy, create new design, and all of a sudden I'm gonna have my workspace, my work plane. There's lots of different objects that they can have. There's connectors, so if you wanted to create something that they can actually piece together, there's shapes, numbers, they have some other options here. If I wanted to favor things, it'll pop them up over there as well. And it's super easy. All you do, you take what you want and you drag it over. And now it's on my plane. I can change the color. I can add holes if I wanted to. I can, predetermine what the sizes are going to be. And I can maneuver and take a look at what it looks like by rotating and using this over on the side. The one thing I will say for advice, if you do choose to use TinkerCad, please encourage your kids to bring in a mouse. I think that makes it a lot easier, and it definitely benefits the kids as far as removing their frustration, because when I first started working with TinkerCad, I was just using my trackpad and it was very difficult to use. So tell them to bring a mouse. The other thing that they can do, if you're worried about kids being able to take the time to move things over, you can search for objects. So if you're doing a certain type of project, like let's say I wanted to assign a project where they have to create an ornament. All right, so I'm going to make a dinosaur ornament. And I'm going to search through, I'm going to take a look. And I decide, ooh, I really like this one. When I click on it, I have the option to copy it and then mess with it. So I can tinker it in a way that I like it. So right now it's just making the modification. So now it's on my account and you'll see it says copy. I can change what this is. So maybe I decide that this is mom's gift. I can then go through and modify this the way that I want to. And when I am ready, all I have to do is hit export, save it as the file that I need, and it will start to download, and boom, there it is. I have my file that's ready, and then all I have to do is send it to either a 3D printer, or I can now upload it onto my Miniverse page, which I'll talk about here in a second, in order to create a hologram. So here is the plan. How am I going to tie together this merge cube alongside TinkerCad? I said I wanted to challenge my students and I wanted to engage them. And so I think the best way that I can do that is I'm going to ask my students to design their own DNA molecule on TinkerCad, take that file and convert it onto Mini Universe, which I'll talk about here in a second. And they're going to place it on that merge cube so that they can see it themselves. In order for my kids to understand a lot of the concepts that I talk about, they need to understand the structure of the model of DNA. And I think that that is where I have a lot of holes in some of my students. So to start, I definitely plan on having them practice just with the merge cube, understanding how it works, how they can maneuver it around. And I don't think that's going to take a whole ton of time. So I think it'll be very easy. So then after my students learn about DNA, I'm going to ask them to practice with TinkerCad, sending out those different tutorials, giving them practice so they know how to use it. And then I'm going to tell them, all right, now that you know what it is, I want you to make a model. They're then going to share that project with the Mini Universe Object Viewer, which is a free app. And then I'm going to have them share it and compare it with their peers. Now, I understand that there are going to be some students that this is going to be a huge struggle for. So there are some accommodations that I can give. The first thing is that there are scanning applications available. So if they have a really great model, they can scan it and they can upload it into TinkerCad. They can find those pre-made models that I showed you where you can just search for them. And the other really cool thing that the kids can do is they can add text to the images that I have them design. So if I want them to label things, they can do that as well too. And I can give them that expectation prior to them beginning. So let me show you how that works. How do I take a model that I've designed through TinkerCad, upload it onto Miniverse, and then go ahead and put it onto my merge cube? All right. So now we're going to say that our students have finished creating their model. And so here's my example of my DNA model. All I'm going to do in order to take this file and put it on my merge cube is I need to download it. So I'm going to click over here where it says export. And I'm going to export it as this type of file. And it's preparing for export. And while it's doing that, I'm going to sign in to my merge account. And so I've already created an account. So I'm going to hit continue and sign in. And again, this is my Miniverse account. And what I'm going to do is upload my project. Now you'll notice that the downside to this is that there's only 5 uploads available, and that's per cube. So I have 30 cubes. I'm gonna have to make sure that each time a kid signs in using their cube, that they're going to only have 5 projects on there. They're going to have to delete them in order for them to work later on down the line. So if I hit upload, again, these are the files that they're allowed to move. I hit choose my file. Remember, this is one that I just downloaded. So I'm going to go to my downloads. Here is my strand. I'm going to open. It's starting to upload. And now I have a code. So this code right here is going to be really important as I'm going through and I'm trying to find and see my image on that merge cube. Okay, so now that I have that code, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Object Viewer app, which is right here. And as I click on it, I'm going to take a second. And again, I'm going to be displaying that hologram or that 3D model onto my merge cube. So it's signing me in. And I wrote down my object code on a sheet of paper right over here. And so as I type it in, it was EXX0PX. I'm going to hit load. And then here is my model. And I've already downloaded it, so all I have to do is hit play. So it's going to take a second to upload it. And now I just need to get my cube in view, and there's my model. And I can zoom in and I can make it bigger if I wanted to, and I can rotate it just like I was before, and I can see and zoom in, and I can ask them about the rungs of it if I wanted to. I could ask them about the colors that they chose to use. There are lots of different things that I could do with this piece. And again, I can zoom it down if I wanted to, so it's really small. I can move the phone closer to it if I was interested. And the other really cool thing that I would like to do with this project too is even you right now, if you had a merge cube, all you would need is this code, that EXXOPOX. You would also be able to view the same image that I have created. And any of my students, if they want to share it with their classmates, if I want them to do peer reviews, I could have them do that as well. So it's pretty cool. So now that you've seen kind of it all put together, there are other couple things that I just wanted to talk to you guys about as far as what you can do with these merge cubes. So the first thing is I learned that you could make a giant merge cube. And so here's the original one that's down here, but what they actually ended up doing is taking cardboard, they just painted the same symbol and made larger ones. So imagine how large you can end up, excuse me, making the holograms that it is that you're looking at, like life size, larger than life. Like it'd be pretty cool. There were also some cross-curricular options that I learned about as well. I found out that there were actually a couple colleagues of mine, aside from the librarian, that were interested in using the merge cube, and one of them was our art teacher. She thought it would be really cool to be able to show students art displays using the merge cubes. She also liked the idea of like kind of having students create art based off of history and then having like history classes critique and identify like what era they're from as well. And also, the Merge Cube has a lot of really fun games. Like, I know it's supposed to be education-based is what we're looking at, but they had a lot of really interesting and fun games. So one of them that I really liked was called Diffuse, and it was the cube was a bomb, and you had to diffuse it yourself. And it kind of reminded me of like an escape room or like a breakout room, and I thought that that was kind of cool as well. So some pros and cons for the merge cube and my activity idea. So some pros, I do think this would be super engaging. I think the kids would get really into it. The cubes themselves are small, they're easy for storage. There's lots of resources that are available for both merge cube and for TinkerCad. It gives them practice with designing, and it's also a benefit for trying to use for cross-curricular as well. Some cons, the upfront cost, it is frustrating that you'll have to purchase those cubes, and if you wanted to use additional resources you might have to pay for those as well. You can only upload 5 projects to Miniverse at a time, and so if I'm having the kids constantly designing, that means eventually over time they're going to have to delete them, which is a bummer. I guess the one upside to that is we can keep them on TinkerCad and we can always continue to transfer them back and forth between the two, but as far as efficiency's sake, that might be a little bit frustrating at times. TinkerCad does take time to learn. I'm going to have to make sure that I implement that within my curriculum, and that does take away time from other activities that I've done, but I do think that there is value in that. And the last con is that there has to be space on the devices for the kids. I never thought that that would be an issue, but with some of these students and the number of apps that they have and like text messages and stuff, freeing up space can be a little bit difficult, and making sure that they have the time to download those ahead of time might be another thing. So thanks so much for watching. I am really excited about this new added piece of technology, and I think it was a really cool experience for me to not only look at one new technology tool, but also looking at TinkerCad and how I can compare the two of them together. And in regards to maybe not being able to use the merge cube, at least I know that I have the 3D printing availability to back up on as well. This class has been super interesting, and I've learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing where it takes me. So thanks again for watching.